Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in both Virginia and Texas. It is May the 1st of 2023, and we are here with all the legal news going on in your world so that you can be better legally informed. We begin with a story out of Texas, out of Houston. As a man who knows how to take charge and is a manly man who knows how to take charge of situations, decided to take a charge of a situation by shooting a person who had scammed him out of $40. He had parked at a restaurant. A person said that they were a parking attendant, wanted him to pay, but they weren't a parking attendant. They were just a person trying to scam him. And he decided to respond to this scam by shooting the person. So he knows how to take charge. So there we go. Here pictured is a manly man who knows how to take charge of situations when he's being scammed from a parking lot. A 29-year-old man was out on a date with a woman when police say he shot and killed another man who scammed him out of money while posing as a parking attendant. Unsurprisingly, he's been charged with murder for the shooting death of the 46-year-old Elliot Nix, the scammer. Prosecutors say the individual was already out on probation for aggravated assault at the time of the shooting. So apparently he is no stranger to violence. He is willing to use the violence to get his way, showing us all how I suppose it's done. He has a bond of apparently $200,000 as currently pending. According to investigators, on April the 11th, the couple parked separately at a lot in a place downtown known as Adio. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they were parking separately to go to this date. Then they were approached by this man, Nix, who claimed to be a parking attendant and asked for $40 for both cars, $20 a piece, I think is how that works out. So yeah, please pay me for parking here, $20 a piece to park to go to this restaurant. Okay. So then he went to the nearby store and returned with cash before they went to the Rodeo Goat, which is apparently the restaurant they were going to, which was located across the street. Then once they got there, a waiter who was there said that they knew that this scam was happening. So apparently they were aware of this, and for whatever reason, the police hadn't caught up to it or whatever. So the waiter said, hey, that guy over there who you paid for parking, he's not a parking attendant. He's just a guy who is scamming people out of money. Pay $20 to pay this lot, but it's not my lot. So they alerted him. The employees of the various places then watched him sprint to his car, grab a pistol, and chase after the man who had engaged in this fraud. He then fatally shot Nix and left his body on the side of the road. He then returned the gun to the car and then returned to his date at the burger restaurant. So he was not going to let this incident dissuade him in any way, man. He wanted to make sure that he was going to continue his date and maybe get lucky. Well, it's nice to know that nothing can throw this man off. He is a man on a mission to get a date, a man on a mission not to get defrauded, I guess. So he returned to his car, then to the burger restaurant. She knows that he was upset. He went to the person allegedly scammed them, but they went to have dinner. And at some point, the defendant said he was uncomfortable with the restaurant and they left. So they didn't want to stay at that restaurant anymore. Apparently, his date didn't realize this shooting had happened until the next day. So apparently it was not a talk of dinner conversation. The next day when Houston police released surveillance images of the couple and said, hey, we're wanted for questioning. And the woman said, oh, wait a second, that's me. Okay, so maybe something happened here. According to documents, the date continued hours into the evening. Unclear whether or not he was able to finish his evening off with a second kind of bang. She interviewed the police on April the 13th. She wanted to do the right thing, wanted to make sure she came forward and told the police what she knew. Authorities issued the warrant for the arrest. On April 15th, he was arrested in Corpus Christi area, brought back to Houston, where he was booked into jail on Tuesday. Thus, that brings us to the end of this story about a man out on a date with a woman who went to park near the restaurant and was told by a person, you need to pay to park here. He paid, but unfortunately, it turns out he was being scammed. He decided to respond to this by shooting the person involved and is now being charged with murder. So I don't know what that, and then apparently had no problems wanting to continue his date. He continued his date, and then the date went on for several more hours. Unclear how it ultimately resolved. So this is a story of a person in Houston who responded to being scammed out of $40 with more aggression than is required, but that's how that story ended. And that brings us to the end of discussion of this tale. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome again to Uncivil Law. I am glad to have you here as always. I hope you're just having the most fantastic morning as always. I am in good spirits. I hope you're in good spirits and we can be in good spirits together. It is a beautiful day, 62 and sunny here at the moment in Austin, Texas. Sandra Ramirez is here, of course, as always. Sarah Marshall is here. Rose Lynn is here. Kit Kat is here. Trigger warning. Good to have you here as always. Angie Smith. Erin Olivia, nice to have you here as well. Just looking for some names here to say hello. Jerry Crouch. Let's see. Salty Dragon, or Sally Dragon is here. Hello, Sally Dragon. We like all kinds of dragons. Dragons named Sally are more than welcome here. Jillian Maloney is here. Good morning. Tammy Ellison, good morning. Gwyneth Les, good morning. And Betsy are here. Good morning to you. Just a friendly reminder, by the way, if you would like to become a member of the channel, you can become a member of the channel by hitting that beautiful join button or the link that is in the video comments. You can become an uncivilian for a mere 99 cents and help to support the channel so that we have money for things. For example, I'm currently trying to get money to help get a gimbal. I'm looking at the Insta360 Flow and I'm probably an external microphone like MV88 or something, so that when I'm out and about, I can get better audio and better video quality if I'm out and about. So, all that good stuff. The casserole turned out pretty well. I might put it into a casserole dish and bake it though. It's a little runny. So I might put it in a casserole dish. I might add a little bit more egg to it and put it in a casserole dish and bake it and do it that way. Because it's a little runny. So I might do that. But the recipe itself turned out. Also, it could use a little bit more heat. So I'm going to add in some Frank's Red Hot or something. Good morning. Sandra Ramirez gives 10 gift memberships. Thank you very much, Sandra, as always, for the gift memberships. Appreciate it. It tasted good, though. It tasted good. It's just a little runny. Yeah. Although, of course, you could do it that way deliberately, right? You could do it that way. Also, you could cook off the liquid a little bit more. And, so it's a little runny for the tacos. Get rid of some of the liquid, so you cook off the liquid a little bit more. But other than that, it's fine. You could also add rice to it, of course, when you bake it. Yeah, you could do that, as well as a binder. I've got some rice I could throw in there. That would work too. The rice, of course, would soak up the liquid, so that also solves that problem. So that's not a bad idea. If you heat it in the microwave, add an egg in your rice. And of course, we had a wonderful time at Eeyore's birthday, as I'm sure you guys know. And of course, we've got this clean shaven look going on, and I got a little sun. As you can see, my face is a little red. I put on some sunscreen, but apparently not enough. So, okay. All right. Thank you, Christoph, for saying I look mighty fine. I appreciate that as always. Always appreciate people saying I look nice. I try to put on a presentable appearance. Try to, make myself look nice and pretty. And I feel pretty. I feel pretty. Oh, so pretty. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, so fresh and so clean. You got it, Springstorm, for sure. All right, let's cover our next story. Controversy regarding Dianne Feinstein. That's not quite her name. Let me see if I can do this again. Dianne. All right, let's do this again. Controversy regarding Dianne Feinstein continues to mount as she has been absent for some time due to illness. And it looks like a lot of people are very concerned about this because she serves a very important role in the Senate, and it looks like she's unable to do her job. So there's a lot of pressure for her to resign so that someone else could take over the position. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what's going on with Dianne Feinstein over here from California. Let's get started with this. The race to replace the retiring senator is well underway, but the California senior senator, and then by this token we mean senior as in the one who's been there longest among the two, that's what makes her senior in this context, has missed 60 votes over the past 2 months. So that's a lot of votes. So some Democrats are calling for her to resign because, she's not able to do the job. Feinstein, who apparently, at least according to press reports, is recovering from shingles, said that she plans to serve out her term and has at least received public support from party leadership, as one would expect. They're not going to, go right away to instantly demeaning her because she's a very powerful person. They don't want to do that. The Senate Majority Leader said this week that he hopes that she'll return soon. Feinstein released a statement saying she plans to return to Washington when doctors say it's safe for her to travel. So, okay. With a narrowly divided Senate, of course, because it's right on the line, questions have risen about the options for Democrat if Feinstein does not return, but also doesn't resign. So what do we do if she doesn't show up and she doesn't resign? How does that work? That's a good question. The 89-year-old, who is the oldest member of the Senate, has been facing questions in recent years about cognitive abilities and fitness for post. Does that mean she's also president pro temp? Because that's usually how that works. Usually the president pro temp is the oldest senator. So does that mean she's president pro temp? So she's technically fourth in line for the presidency right now? Okay. I mean, that's, all right. I'm not sure why the oldest senator should be the president pro temp and fourth in line for the presidency. No, she didn't take the job? Okay. All right. So it's someone else. All right. But the question was, yeah. All right. So it's like, okay, wow. All right, fine. The 89-year-old, who is the oldest member of the Senate, has been facing questions in recent years about cognitive ability and fitness for post, which, yes. Her supporters argue these questions are ageist and sexist. I mean, she clearly is having problems. And sometimes when people get old, sometimes their facilities fail them. It's part of, unfortunately, natural decline. There are a lot of 80-year-olds who are quite sharp, but I'm not quite sure necessarily she's one of them. People appointed male senators who served in their twilight without such criticism. Some of them probably deserve such criticism. Some of them might have been competent. But the dynamic changed once Feinstein announced that she was hospitalized with shingles, a viral infection that's related to chickenpox, that's painful but not life-threatening. At the time, she said she hoped to return to Senate. One wonders if it's actually shingles, of course, because that's the story they're saying. But is that really what it is? I'm sure it's something health-related, but is it really shingles? Her continued absence is critical for two reasons. Democrats have narrow control of the Senate, and Feinstein sits on the powerful Judiciary Committee. With her absence, the panels divide 10-10, which stymies the work of the committee because the Republicans can block everything because they can't get a majority to vote out a committee. So they can't get things done out of the committee. The committee last voted on a nominee for the bench in February, and its chairman has told CNN they can't put Biden appointees forward because they can't vote them out of committee because they're tied. This conundrum prompted Feinstein to ask Schumer to temporarily replace her, but that move also was blocked by Senate Republicans because why would they want to replace her? Because with her absent, they're tied and they can block the nominees. So they've blocked efforts to replace her because the moment they can block nominees that way. So yeah. As to the question whether the Senate can remove an incapacitated senator from office, there's nothing specifically about this, but then again, the Senate is the judge of their own rules and they can vote to expel anyone. But then again, how are you going to get the Republicans to vote to expel her? Because the fact that she's not there makes the Republicans' life easier. So why would they vote to expel her? So, in the past, when senators have been absent for extended periods, the Senate has proceeded as normal. Of course, that's in situations where that seat is less critical. Prior examples, of course, include people who suffered from stroke, who were absent for years. And President Biden himself, when he was a senator, was absent for 7 months after he underwent 2 brain surgeries related to brain aneurysms. So even President Biden himself had extended absences when he was then Senator Biden. And I'm sure those brain aneurysm surgeries have had no impact on his abilities going forward. Unless the senator resigns, the only way to remove them is by a 2/3 expulsion vote. Why would the Republicans vote for such a thing? The Senate is the judge of its own rules. They can vote to expel a person, but why would the Republicans do that? Because why would they allow the Democrats to appoint someone who'd be fit? So as long as she's wanting to stay, it's like, no, you stay, Dianne. You stay. You're the greatest senator because you're not here. In the 234-year history of the Senate has expelled 15 members, 1 for treason and 14 because of their support for Confederacy. So they are pretty reluctant to expel people in the Senate. That's a pretty short list. We expelled 1 for treason, 1 because they were Confederates, or 14 because they're Confederates. Since the last expulsion in 1862, there have been 13 attempts to remove, but not so much. Yeah. If the seat becomes vacant for whatever reason, under California law, the vacancy would be filled by appointment by the governor for the remainder of the term. The governor, of course, could also call for a special election, but why would they? Just appoint whoever they want. Because they can. In the event that the governor appoints somebody, or I suppose if it's filled by general election, either way, there would also be a vote to seat the same senator for the remainder of the term at the next election. As to let me try this again. As to the question of what committees this new senator, should they be appointed or elected, would serve on, that would be determined by its own terms. Typically, the seats for various committees are determined based on seniority. So the more senior you are, the longer you've been a senator, you get your choice of committee, basically. That is typically the way it's done. So the most junior person typically doesn't get their choice. They get to serve on whatever committee is available. So typically there's sort of like, a domino effect. As someone resigns or a seat becomes available, someone gets their choice, and then someone gets their choice, and then someone gets their choice. And you have this little stack of progression as things go. And then you wind up on, the Foreign Intelligence Committee or something. But, that's typically how that goes. So the junior person would be appointed to whatever seat no one else wanted. Under the current rules, Republicans could prevent her successor or any Democrat let me try that again. Under the current rules, Republicans could prevent the successor or any Democratic replacement from filling the seat on the Judiciary Committee because it would require approval of the entire Senate, which at the moment they can't do because now the Senate is in session. It's filibusterable. So the Republicans could prevent that from being done unless, of course, the Democrats break the filibuster again. In 2021, the California governor pledged to appoint a black woman to replace Feinstein if she retired early. So we've already get my teeth in. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'll keep doing my thing over here. I don't understand the expression, get your teeth in. In 2021, the California governor pledged to appoint a black woman. So much like the president said, I'm going to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court, the California governor said they're going to appoint a black woman to be the senator. So we are again doing this based on race. How exciting. The promise came after his decision to appoint someone to replace Harris when she was sworn in as vice president. Harris's departure had meant there was not a single black woman in the Senate. This pledge, however, has created a bit of a problem. There are 3 candidates vying for Feinstein's seat: Democratic Representative Schiff of Burbank, Porter of Irving, and Lee of Oakland. Newsom has declined to weigh in on the race, saying there's the 3 extremely qualified candidates that have displayed courage it takes to fight. So he might have to choose between these people, which could lead to its own set of problems. Lee, who is black, is beloved by liberal Democrats as a sole member of Congress to vote against Bush relating to the authorization of military force in relation to September 11th. So in the vote to authorize military force, there was 1 vote no, and she was the only vote no. When Newsom pledged to name a black woman, if she resigned, Lee was one of the likely choices. However, with such a Senate race already underway, such an appointment would be viewed as the governor putting a thumb on the scale of the election and could irk others in the race who might be more popular with Democratic voters. So if the governor makes a choice, that could be a problem for internal politics in California. Politics are always fun. They're always a mess. This is why I like law. Law is a little bit cleaner. Thus, that brings us to the end of the discussion of the story of Dianne Feinstein, who has been suffering from health problems and has been absent from the Senate. Unable to vote on the Judiciary Committee, the Judiciary Committee is currently tied. As a result, they can't vote judges, which is good for the Republicans, not so good for the Democrats as things are progressing. So There's all this controversy underway. As things are going on, Dianne Feinstein has said she won't resign. So all that is happening. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story. All right. Excellent. Do I have improv class tonight? I do have improv class tonight. Every Monday, baby. I do have improv class tonight, and I am very excited about it, as I always am. Improv is fun. Let's do this one. Let's see. I've got a song in my heart. Got a song for you. Want to sing a song. Be with you, oh chat. I love to be with you. Chat, you're the greatest. You make me happy every day. I love you, chats. Appreciate every one of you. Without the chats, this would not be as much fun. Gotta sing a song of law. Spring storm, spring storm. We love to feel you. Spring storm when the rains fall down from the heavens, making flowers bloom everywhere. Spring storm, spring storm. Making things lovely in the grass green with the trees, with the birds singing. Spring storm. All right. A local fixture in a California park known for his compassion, known by the phrase, let me try this again. How long was that about the festival? About 5 hours. A man known to locals as Compassion Guy has been killed in a senseless attack in a California park, bringing an unfortunate end to the joy that he brought his community. It's always sad when things like this happen. People out there trying to make the world a little bit a better place, one person at a time, one place at a time. And this man is attacked, taking joy away from his community. That is truly depressing. Let's learn a little bit more about Compassion Guy. Okay, great. A well-known fixture in the California community, known to others as Compassion Guy, was stabbed to death in the park in what police say was a violent and senseless attack. Okay, my eyes are having an allergy attack. Hold on. Sorry, I have to go off camera for a second because my eyes are having an allergy attack. These are usually pretty brief, so just give me a second. All right, give me just a minute here. You can look at the orb of my symbol here. Yeah. I take Claritin every day for all the good it apparently does me. All right. This tends to happen more when I'm on stream because my eyes are also light sensitive. And so when I'm streaming, of course, I have the light box on in front of me to make sure that I'm well illuminated so you guys can see me. But it's light basically right in my eye. And so it tends to aggravate my eyes. So the light makes my eyes aggravated, so it makes my eyes more sensitive. This wouldn't be a problem if we were like out and about or something because I just wear sunglasses like a normal person. But obviously, I can't do that when I'm on stream. So, the light itself makes my eyes a little bit more sensitive. And then the allergies kick in and fun times. Did I hear the Supreme Court just grant cert in a case that might overrule Chevron? Oh, don't tease me like that. Oh. Let's see what's happening. Have I tried Zyrtec eye drops? Yeah, I have problems using eye drops. I've always had problems. Using eye drops. So I've tried using, but I have real problems applying eye drops. So I tend to not be able to get them in my eye, and so yeah. All right, let's see if we can go. How are we looking now? All right, let's give us another shot. A well-known fixture in the California community, known to locals as Compassion Guy, was stabbed to death in the park in what police say was a violent and senseless attack. This guy just trying to live his life, trying to be a source of joy, trying to bring joy to people as they go about in the park, and someone just stabbed him for no apparent reason. Just to be cruel, I guess. Take away a bit of joy from the world or something, I don't know. The incident apparently happened Thursday at about 11:20 a.m. at the Central Park in downtown Davis, 15 miles west of Sacramento. A passerby found him. Police were notified. He'd been found dead on a bench near a playground. Police described the attack as violent, saying the victim suffered multiple stab wounds. So this guy's just being stabbed in the middle of a park, and then they lay him down on a park bench or something to bleed out. Detectives say they'd work closely with the coroner's office to determine official cause of death, probably the stabbing. An email to the coroner's office was not immediately returned. As of Friday, police say that they have no immediate suspects. So, because this guy seems like he's loved by people, this just seems like a random attack of violence. Maybe a mugging or something, but this just seems fairly random, just violent for the sake of violence. Due to the violent nature of the attack, additional officers will be deployed in the downtown area to ensure visible police presence, and also potentially to look for witnesses or people who might be able to find things, right? So you put police down there because people tend to be creatures of habit, and you might be able to find someone who's nearby, heard something, saw something. You never know where leads could go. Saw someone running away, saw someone acting suspiciously. So you do it to try to get some information as part of your investigation. We realize it's difficult and disturbing when crimes neighbor happen, especially in a public space in the heart of the downtown area. Yeah, I mean, he's just in a public space in the open in the middle of the day, and someone stabbed him to death. Wow. The individual in question, who is the victim of this, held a weekly gathering in the name of truth. One of those meetings was scheduled for the day he was killed. He's having a public meeting in a public park. Quintessential First Amendment activity. This is about as First Amendment as it gets. This is a public space. He is in the public space holding a gathering, apparently, for people who want to come spend time with him or listen to him talk. Yeah. Secular without dogma was how he described it on his Facebook page. A message emphasizing love and compassion without a teaching or socialization. A simple pointing to alleviate the illusory nature of suffering. So, a little hippie maybe, but if people want to hear his message, it's a public park. He's allowed to have people come hear his message in a public park. He had said on a fundraising site, they've been asked for people to share their concept of compassion and recorded answers in a notebook and then video due to COVID. He self-published a book with 3,000 responses. So, okay, that's an interesting thing to do, right? Let's ask people what they think compassion is. What is compassion? An interesting philosophical question. He asks people what it is and then to share their responses, and then he self-published a book with 3,000 responses on what compassion is. That sounds nice. I do this as a lifelong endeavor to bring awareness to compassion. I've done interviews, been subject to documentaries, and present for street therapists to those who seek guidance. Sounds nice. If you don't like that, you don't have to participate. Could be a lot of things, could be culty, could be a lot of things, but he's entitled to do it. He's not hurting anybody, at least by what's being reported, so why not? Mourners gathered at the park to pay tribute at the Compassion Bench, a project he spearheaded that became the first monument built in honor of compassion. So he apparently was so dedicated to the concept of compassion, he had built a bench in the park, the Compassion Bench, a bench dedicated to the concept of compassion that the park apparently allowed him to build. And that's where he sort of held his meetings, at the Compassion Bench, to bring people attention to the concept of compassion. Wow. His killing, a woman told the paper, shakes to the core of your belief system about what is good. Yeah, a little bit. But I think he'd want to find some good in what he's trying to do and not look at the negative. Yeah, that does seem to be a little bit of his philosophy, so I suppose that's one way of honoring him. City officials, for their part, released a statement saying that he had dedicated his time and energy to selflessness. So even the city has sort of acknowledged his role as a good influence on the community. The mayor said that the death of the individual is utterly and completely devastating. Many of us knew David, the person who died. We talked with him. We shared his vision for a kinder world. We connected on what it means to be human and humane. David was gentle and kind, soft-spoken, thoughtful, brilliant, selfless. He'll be missed. So the mayor of the city came forward with an official statement about this guy. So seemed like he touched a lot of people's lives in the community for the better. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story about David Bro, also known as Compassion Guy, a guy who, for whatever reason, wanted to dedicate his life to the concept of compassion. And every week, apparently, he would have a meeting in the public park to talk about compassion. And he would interview people about what compassion is. And he would write their responses down. He asked people to record videos about what compassion is. He'd write those responses down, and he published a book about it. He was so dedicated to the concept of compassion, he had a bench built in the park for the concept of compassion, and apparently touched a lot of people's lives, including the mayor, who said that his loss will be missed. And this appears to just be a random stabbing that happened for whatever reason, or no reason at all. So a light lost in the community. And that, unfortunately, brings us to the end of discussion of this story. Lame. Gina asked, have I read any of Laura and Chad's spicy text messages? Yes, I have. About 10 months ago at this point. But yes, we read their text messages on stream in their entirety. There's a stream of it. You can go watch it. All right, let's see, what else do I want to cover today? All right, let's cover this one. Short, but notable. Not all of them have to be long. Not every story has to be long. The Montana governor has signed a bill that bans gender-affirming care for transgender minors, otherwise known as surgeries that permanently deform young people, including things that could be considered very bad by hacking off reproductive bits, for example. The Montana governor has signed a bill that would ban this, escalating the issue, of course. The Biden administration, for its part, has already intervened trying to stop this as well, because minors should have their bits hacked off or something. So the Montana governor has joined the fight on this issue as it relates to the surgeries for the minors that will permanently deform them. Let's learn more about this. Sarah asks, why am I not covering Daybell? Well, I wanted to cover Daybell. Well, I wanted to cover Daybell initially because I thought it was interesting. And then when it wasn't streamed, it was hard. And then I thought, okay. So then I thought, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll just do the stream every day with and it'll just be delayed a day. But that didn't really work as a concept once I sort of saw how it would play out. So then it was like, okay, how do I go about covering it? And there wasn't really a great mechanism, it seemed to me, to cover it in a sort of a daily way. So, other channels, of course, have different ideas about things, and different channels have covered it to some success. it just didn't really seem like there was any really way for me to cover it in a way that would work for me. So, it was there wasn't really a great way to do it, it seemed to me. So, I took a pass on the story. Um, so yeah. But that's why. And if I was gonna like stream it every night, it'd be really hard because, be streaming it in real time, it'd be difficult. So especially if I was gonna do it like late at night, because those would be really long days. So just really, and then of course it's audio only, which doesn't really work. And I just didn't really think it was gonna work for me as a channel. Hmm. It's really launching Danny Direct's channel, but you do you. Hmm. I can't help noticing your writing style seems familiar to other people that we've had before in the chat. Who are you, Sarah Marshall? Hmm. The Montana governor has signed into law a bill banning gender-affirming care for transgender minors in the state. Thank you, Chris Mullen, for the 10 gift memberships. I appreciate it. Thank you. The governor signed the bill, the Youth Health Protection Act, after the legislature banned Montana lawmaker from the floor for speaking out against it, which lays way to its own political hilarity. The Youth Health Protection Act claims to enhance the protection for minors and their families regarding gender-affirming care such as puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgical procedures. So maybe not allowing the mutilation of people's reproductive parts. The bill bans healthcare providers from knowingly providing transgender minors with medical treatments to address the minor's perception that their gender or sex is not what they were labeled at birth. Because a lot of those treatments can be permanent or lead to significant consequences for health. When you're doing these things, including incidentally mental health, also incidentally, there's significant ramifications from the treatments. So delaying the treatments while a person is minor and going through a lot of turmoil seems to make a lot of sense. And so they're like, yeah, let's not do that. If a healthcare provider does it anyway, they find a suspension and also, of course, a civil lawsuit. Critics of the new law have condemned it as tantamount to torture for transgender minors. Oh, Lord. In a statement, the Montana chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics stated this bill is based on false information about healthcare for transgender youth. Is it though? Is it? Is it based on false information? I'm not sure it is. American Academy of Pediatrics. Who is giving the false information in this equation? Not clear it's not you, to be quite honest. The governor signed the bill despite increasing pressure following the legislature vote to censure the legislature and pushback from the governor's own son, who identifies as non-binary. The governor's son called the law immoral, unjust, and frankly a violation of human rights, in meeting with his father. So the governor's own son objects to this, which is also kind of hilarious. According to the Youth Health Protection Act, the Montana legislature is also in the process of banning drag show performances in public spaces. which gets into interesting First Amendment territory, of course, when it comes to regulation of such speech. Because, of course, we've had regulation as it relates to sexual based speech for quite some time when it comes to zoning, for example, and where such performances can and cannot be held. And then, of course, you get into line drawing problems and boundary defining problems as it relates to such things. So, can the legislature prohibit under 18 from going to flat out pornographic events? Yes. The answer to that question is surely yes. And then, of course, the question becomes okay, well, where exactly is the line? How do we define these things? What are the interests of parents in raising their own children? What are the interests in protecting youth from their own parents? Lots of fun stuff as it comes into the First Amendment space when it comes to such issues. But how we define drag performances, how we define them, what are the rules? Well, things get interesting in First Amendment land, to be sure. Unsurprisingly, the ACLU and Lambda Legal will bring a lawsuit against it, of course. Montana, for its part, joins 17 other states that have banned such care, including Tennessee, South Dakota, and Kentucky. So, yes, a significant percentage of states have passed laws restricting or banning this so-called health care for the minors, and also restricting sexually provocative performances as it relates to minors, which are testing the boundaries as it relates to all kinds of interesting things. And the federal government, of course, is also getting involved for its part, pledging to make sure that the minors have access to all the mutilating care they could ever want. Thus, that brings us to the end of this discussion of the Montana governor signing a bill to prevent the youth from having their bits chopped off and also having access to puberty blockers, which can create youth health problems onto themselves. It's like, maybe this is a problem. Maybe minors shouldn't be allowed to just have, life changing surgeries or life changing things. Maybe minors saying, I really want this permanent change to my body. Maybe that's a problem. And we should regulate that in some way. And Montana, looking at this, has said, this is a thing that is a problem. We should not allow for this thing. Joining 17 other states. And then you get into all kinds of issues and line drawing problems as always. What exactly are the rules? What should the rules be? How do you determine if this minor deserves care? Should you just have a flat out ban on it? If not, what would be the rules for it? How do you determine that? How do you determine when it is in the best interest of the child? How do you determine when it's not in the best interest of the child? Is a per se rule maybe the cleanest way to do it, even if it negatively impacts some people? So maybe just a per se rule is a really clean way to do it, even if it causes problems for some particular individuals. Or maybe we need to accommodate those particular individuals. And how would you go about defining the rules in such a way that would do that in a way that does all those things? But Montana has, for its part, at least created an initial set of rules, and also looking at rules dealing with the drag shows, which again gets into interesting line drawing problems with how you define sexually explicit or sexually provocative performances, how you zone those, all those kinds of rules, all kinds of fun stuff as it relates to that. But that, for the moment, brings us end of discussion of this story. Thank you, Alan Parker, as always, for your continuing support of this channel. We really, really appreciate it. As always, it is all kinds of great. Yeah. We really love it. Yeah. Those against puberty blockers want little girls with medical issues to develop breasts at 7. Well, first of all, I don't know how many girls are developing breasts at 7. But to the extent that girls are developing breasts at 7, then that would be natural. I mean, it would be early as shit, but like, if that's the natural course of things, then that's the natural course of things, I suppose. I mean, nature's going to do what nature's going to do. Let me also say this. For all my moderators who happen to be here, let's do a meeting after the stream on Discord. So if you could preferably get access to voice chat or something and a microphone of some kind, you of course can use mobile. But let's have a meeting. We haven't had a mod meeting in forever. So let's have a mod meeting today because why not? And we'll have it immediately following the stream so that we can discuss things. That will be good. So let's do that. Great. All right. Did I cover the corners crossing thing in Wyoming? No? Did someone well, I'm not sure which one you mean. There was a case dealing with trespass issues. Is that the one you mean? We didn't cover that, but I read about that. So is that the one you mean with the trespass issues? So there was an issue dealing with a guy who was right. There was an issue dealing with a guy who had two pieces of land that connected at the corner. Right? So if you imagine like a square, and the square it's broken up into squares. So 4 squares, right? He had the pieces of property that were corner adjacent. And he walked from his own property to his own property by traversing, the corner. But of course, the corner itself is an infinitely small space. So the idea was that he couldn't possibly walk across without trespassing the other land, right? Because his body is bigger than an infinitely small space. So there was an issue dealing with there was a ladder. So so there was an issue basically like, is that okay or not? Because you're technically trespassing the other guy's land, and so is that legal or not? It's a great legal issue. It's a great legal issue, right? So it's like, can you is that trespass or not? It's a great legal issue. Landlocked federal land so others don't have access to property. Yeah, that too, right? So like, well, that would basically, the way you would typically solve that would be like, well, it's not strictly an easement by necessity, I guess, because there might be other ways to get to the land. And maybe we'll just call it an easement by necessity and call it a day. It's not strictly speaking necessary, but let's just call it necessary and move on with our lives. Yeah. So that was a fun issue. Yeah, it was a fun issue. All right. Let's do this one. Reasonableness would have some weight there. Yeah, it's an interesting issue. In UK, you're allowed to cross other people's lands. This is true. Well, I don't know the full parameters of such things, but there is some ability to do that in the UK to some degree. I'm not an expert on it, but the fact you said it, I'm like, yes, that's vaguely true. Under what circumstances, I'm not sure. I don't think it's an infinite free floating right, but there is some right under some circumstances across people's land in the UK. This is true. So please send the Discord link after the stream via DM. It should be available for in the Connect with Me tab. It should be available in the Connect with Me tab. If you click the Connect with Me link tree, it should give you a link to the Discord. But if not, I will just post another one, I guess. He's legally clear, but the dude is suing him for about $8 million. Well, there's a difference between criminal trespass and civil trespass. Right. So yeah, there's a difference between criminal trespass and civil trespass. So criminal trespass, Yeah, probably not. But civil trespass, I mean, technically, yeah. The way such things are typically defined, yes. $8 million seems excessive, but it's an interesting legal issue for sure. I mean, probably the right answer is it probably is I mean, it probably is civil trespass. I mean, you have a right to your boundary lines. Your right to stop at your own boundary lines. So, you know, yeah. So, I mean, under standard law, it is trespass. If there, but there would be, so the question, one of the questions would be, is there any way for him to get to the land without him trespassing on someone else's rights? So if his land that he has the right to is completely locked out by other land, then we get an easement by necessity. Yeah. So if he's landlocked, then easement by necessity probably would be the correct answer. But, you know, if he's not landlocked, if there's some way for him to get to his land, then yeah. A federal law that would create an easement by law would fix a lot of these problems, yes. All right. During COVID, people got stimulus checks to help them with their financial needs. People used the stimulus checks for many things. Some of them to help them with necessities, some of them to help them buying things they need, some of them apparently to buy fentanyl that killed a 2-year-old. Apparently, that's what we decided to spend our stimulus check on. Well, I feel so great as a taxpayer helping to fund the fentanyl that killed the 2-year-old in this Kentucky murder case. Wow. Maybe don't buy the fentanyl and kill a 2-year-old. That'd be great. Let's learn more. A Kentucky mom who used the federalist stimulus money relating to COVID to buy fentanyl caused her 2-year-old son to have a fatal overdose in her lap as she went to sleep. Wow. Mom of the year over here. Mom of the year. Jurors need under 2 hours to find the woman who was 35 guilty on charges of murdering, importing fentanyl, and 2 counts of fentanyl trafficking. 4 days later, she was sentenced to 33 years and must serve at least 20 of them for the death of her 2-year-old. So, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe making sure your 2-year-old doesn't die from a fentanyl overdose would be really great. The county commissioner, let me do that again. The county's attorney said there were never any plea deals offered, calling this a sadly historic case, as it is the county's first murder conviction in an overdose death. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a problem. Given the shocking and offensive facts, if she was going to get less than a life sentence, it wasn't going to come from the person prosecuting. So amazingly, they didn't want to offer her a plea deal because, like, how about life? And like, we'll take less. It's like, no, we're not going to give you anything less than life. So, no. She got a sentence less than life, but not from the district attorney. The top prosecutor credited jurors for sending a strong message to drug abusing parents that they'll be held accountable. I mean, you know, it's not a life sentence, but it is a pretty strong message, so fair enough. The person was found unresponsive by the child's father in his sleeping mother lap after the fentanyl overdose. The woman was apparently interviewed after the arrest, saying the first thing she said was, "I just want to check on my baby." Your baby's dead, woman. Under questioning, she said she brought the fentanyl because It was getting hectic, running over every day and being sick, sitting there all the time. I just thought that if I bought more, I could make it last longer. So she apparently buys in bulk, saves in bulk or something. She apparently spent $1,200 of her stimulus check on fentanyl. The woman said, well, I'd not been doing too good and trying to get back on track because my methadone stopped working when I found out I was pregnant. She elaborated, telling the detective she found out about her pregnancy just the other night, like early morning, and going through drug withdrawal. Asked for more specific, she said she found out about her pregnancy the week that her son died. So apparently she was also pregnant during the time she was taking fentanyl, so that's super fun. She apparently had to travel to Cincinnati, Ohio to buy the fentanyl. Not sure why she couldn't find fentanyl in Kentucky, but apparently her dealer is in Ohio. Baker returned to Kentucky where she admittedly gave quantities of fentanyl to two different people. That would be the trafficking. That would be the trafficking. She then said she took a shot of fentanyl prior to taking a nap with her 2-year-old son. Despite best efforts of doctors at the Children's Hospital Medical Center, this child did not provide. Baker wantonly caused the death of her son by leaving fentanyl within the reach of a child after consuming fentanyl herself and failing to prevent the child from handling the fentanyl. And amazingly enough, it doesn't take a lot of fentanyl to kill a 2-year-old. So, yeah. Did I take up Scottish, take him Chevron? No, not really, but I'll look into it more because someone else mentioned it. Even though he was only 2 years old, he was wise beyond his years. He loved to play with older brothers, loved all dogs, being outdoors. He loved watching Bluey and Mickey Mouse Clubhouse while holding his binky that was always by his side. Wow, that's really depressing. Mother of the year over here. Mother of the year. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story of Lauren Baker, pictured here having just gotten 33 years in prison for the death of the 2-year-old because they let fentanyl within the reach of a child. She used fentanyl and had the baby in her lap, and the baby came into contact with the fentanyl and died. And that's the end of the child. And yeah, she engaged in the drug trafficking by bringing it across state lines, incidentally. So the feds could have a word with her if they want a word with her. If I were the feds, I'd be thinking about having a word with her right about now, to be honest. So the feds could also have a word with her with relation to the drug trafficking, distributing it to other people, and then letting her child die from exposure. So, great. That, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of that story. All right, let me dig up a little bit about what's going on here with this Chevron thing. You should be able to get a link from that. All right, I'll send you a link separately. I mean, the link I just gave you in the chat should be fine, Sandra. Hold on. I'm not sure why the link wouldn't be working for you. I'm gonna take this call right now. Excuse me, I gotta take this call. Okay, I'm back. I sent you a DM. Okay. Um, I was looking into the Chevron thing. That's right. All right, hold on. That's nice when three things happen at the same time, right? Like three things happen at the same time. It's like I get a phone call. I need to send Sandra a link. I'm trying to look up this thing. It's like so three different things all happen at the same time. It's like okay, that's all right. We're fine. Everything's fine. What is this? Do you believe having children is evil? It's a strange position. So you being born was an act of evil? Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you hit the beat. Awesome. Living the dream. The orders list for today. Let's see. Orders list. Okay. Today is the first. Great. All right. So it's in the orders list. Okay. All right. So Looper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce. Exciting. Take a look at this. Let's see. What the hell is this? The Magnus-Stevens Act governs fishery management in federal waters and provides that National Marine Fisheries Service may require vessels to carry federal observers on board to enforce agency's myriad regulations. Given that space on board a fishing vessel is limited and valuable, that alone is extraordinary imposition. But in three narrow circumstances not applicable here, it goes further and requires the vessels to pay the salaries of the federal observers who oversee their operations, although, with the exception of foreign vessels that enjoy the privilege of fishing in our own waters, it caps the cost of those salaries at 2 to 3% of the value of the haul. The statutory question underlying this petition is whether the agency can also force a wide variety of domestic vessels to foot the bill for salaries of the monitors they must carry to the tune of 20% of their revenue. Wow. Under well established principles of statutory construction, the answer would appear to be no, as the express grant of such controversial power in limited circumstances forecloses a broad grant. But a divided panel of the DC Circuit answered yes under Chevron on the theory that statutory silence produces ambiguity. The question presented whether the court should overrule Chevron or at least clarify statutory silence concerning controversial powers expressed but not narrowly granted elsewhere in statute does not constitute ambiguity requiring deference. Okay. Okay. That's a lot. Were you able to get in with the link finally on the Discord, or is there still problems I have to resolve? So yeah, maybe I should re-record that as a separate thing. Let's see if I can find anything other than this to talk about it on the back of. I can use the petition for cert. I might do that. I might re-record it on screen. We'll touch after the show. Okay. I want to know why you weren't able to get in with any of the other links, though. That really bothers me. Let's take a look at the reply from the Secretary of Commerce. I'll send out a note on Discord too. All right. Chat is heavy. Okay. Let's see. I'll wait. Maybe there'll be like an article about it tomorrow. I can cover it or something. Paul Clement is counsel of record. Of course he is. Paul Clement is counsel of record. Maybe I need to send a resume to Paul. All right, let's see what we got. We just did that story. Let's see what else we got today that we want to cover. It's a little in the weeds. I don't think so. No. Okay, I don't know about that. Should we just wrap up the stream with Florida Man? Yeah, we've been here an hour 20. Let's just wrap it up with Florida Man. Okay. Deep breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. All right. For today's Florida man, we turn our attention to a woman who was a nursing assistant at a nursing home and has scammed an Alzheimer's patient ID and money in order to get plastic surgery for herself. How nice to be able to exploit the elderly that are under our care. Let's learn more about Florida woman. A certified nursing assistant who is working as an in-home caregiver is accused of defrauding her patient of $7,000. The woman allegedly opened a credit card in the victim's name in order to pay for plastic surgery for herself. So yeah, she does the nursing home thing, and she also does some stuff on the side, and she does some in-home care, and one of her patients was in home, and she's like, I need plastic surgery. I need $7,000 of plastic surgery. That sounds like a lot of plastic surgery, incidentally. And she's like, I'm going to do that and defraud him. Tiffany over here, her name is Tiffany. How special. Tiffany Acuna, 31, was arrested Thursday after investigators say she contacted the victim's husband. According to the sheriff's report, she wanted him to sign a written agreement that she would pay him $1,000 every month until the money was returned to prevent criminal charges. That's definitely how that works. If you force someone to sign an agreement, that definitely is going to prevent it from being a crime. No, I don't think so. That doesn't work. It was the victim's husband who first contacted the sheriff's office about possible fraud, saying he got a credit card bill in his wife's name with a balance of $7,100. That would get my attention as well. It's like, oh, this credit card in my wife's name, and I have a bill for $7,000. What's that about? Yeah, that get my attention too. He told deputies that neither he nor his wife signed up for a credit card, further getting my attention. Deputies say they further learned the credit card was opened by the victim's in-home caregiver of nearly a year to pay for plastic surgery in Miami. According to the report, they charged several procedures, including a Brazilian butt lift and arm liposuction. Okay, so fine. Investigators say the woman initially denied opening the card or having plastic surgery. Well, both those things are kind of easy to figure out, I guess. Saying, if you knew me, you would know I didn't do that. Well, apparently you did. But as evidence mounted, among other things, the surgery center provided copies presented to them of the driver's license and victim's license. Yeah, that is fine. The mere identity alone is probably not privileged. Exactly what you did might be privileged, but the mere identity alone, yeah. So like, hey, plastic surgery center, has this woman been a patient of yours? All right. It was like, well, we can't tell you what we did, but we can tell you she was a patient of ours. Yeah. So that, and then maybe it's like, oh, maybe we'll get a search warrant or a subpoena for the exact medical records, right? So the mere identity alone. Yeah. Thank you, Sandra, again for the 20 gift memberships. That is incredibly wonderful. Thankful. After initially denying that she had the surgery at all, she then said that the victim gave her permission to use the identity to obtain surgery. So, somewhat inconsistent stories. I didn't have the surgery at all, but if I did, it's because they let me and agreed to pay for it. Deputies were then waiting for the woman when she said that she arrived at the victim's home with $1,500 cash and a repayment contract agreement. That's hilarious. So they were waiting for her at the victim's house when she came with money in hand and a proposed contract for repayment. The evidence against her somewhat continues to mount. She then posted $10,000 bond and is out on jail. She said by phone it's a misunderstanding and has hired an attorney to resolve it. That's a lot of misunderstanding. So it's changed. I didn't have the surgery at all. But if I did, it's because they gave me permission. But if not, it's because it's a misunderstanding. Uh-huh. Your criminal defense is looking really, really great. The woman was apparently working through a company called CNN. I apologize. The woman was apparently working as a nurse through a nursing registry company called American In-Home Care. A spokesman said that there was background check done, but since the arrests, well, not so much with the background check. So, yeah. And apparently, they initially said that she was a nurse, but she's actually a certified nursing assistant. Not exactly sure what the distinction is, but who cares? Here is a picture of a woman who is clearly not in need of plastic surgery of any kind. I can't see why this woman would need any sort of plastic surgery, but she decided to steal $7,000 from an elderly woman who had Alzheimer's in order to pay for her Brazilian butt lift. And she didn't have the butt lifts, but if she did, it's because they gave her permission. But if not, it's because of mistake. And yeah, so this is going really, really well for her. And she's like, oh, my attorney's going to clear all this up. I'm sure she is. I'm sure this is all just one massive misunderstanding. Uh-huh. And that, for the moment, leads us to the end of discussion of this tale. All right. I think we're done here today. All right, guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think today's morning stream went? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm necessarily feeling it. I'm not sure this was necessarily one of the better ones. Maybe it's just me, though. So you can let me know if the perception or something, but yeah. All right. Solid 6. It wasn't good. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it wasn't one of the better ones. Fine, yeah. It was okay. It was fine, yeah, just fine. I think that's a fair assessment, just fine. Adequate. 5 out of 7, that's an old joke, but I recognize that. 5 out of 7, huh? Okay, that's an old joke. You could podcast these? Well, I cut them up individually. What do you mean by podcast them? Just release the whole thing as a podcast or release the videos? I was distracted, that's why I wasn't feeling it. That's very true. Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, I was distracted, and so I wasn't feeling it. That's true. Good observation. Good observations. I was great on Friday Night Frenzy. Thank you. Do the cut ups as podcast episodes? Yeah. I need a way to do that in an automated way. That's what I need. I need an automated script that does that or something that automatically switches it over or something. You don't get the 5 out of 7 joke? Oh, geez, that's an old joke. I forget the exact context, but it was a Reddit thread or something where 5 out of 7 is perfect. And it's like, yeah, because someone commented basically, it's one of those comments that, one of those Reddit comments or something that's kind of been lost to history or something. But someone on Reddit at one point responded to someone asking how this was rated, and they said, well, I rated a perfect 5 out of 7. Something like that. It's like I rated a perfect 5 out of 7. So 5 out of 7, yeah. It's perfect, apparently. Did I meet anyone at ER? I met lots of people at ER. I love people talking to people. If you mean, did I meet a special woman? No. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. For those of you who are moderators, YouTube moderators, or Discord moderators, we're going to hop on a voice chat. Oh, look, I got some sun. Yeah, I'll live. And my hair's a mess too. I gotta recomb it. All right, I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll edit some of this and release it later. So we'll hop on a Discord call and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Goodbye.